That day, when a book was found lying in the grass under a tree, a girl with orange hair picked it up. This Eternal Story, a complete guide strategy book, piqued her interest. She kept the book and returned to the town immediately. As she entered the shop, Uncle Dalgus was there purchasing a recovery potion. Sana, the orange-haired girl, greeted him. Uncle Dalgus asked if she went to collect some herbs in the mountain. Sana said yes, and that fresh herbs could only make a good recovery potion. She went inside and was greeted by her brother. Sana showed him the herbs she collected in the eastern part of the forest. He was glad because they found a spot where herbs were growing plenty. Their family runs this tool shop, and their forte is making recovery potions. Sana's job was to pick the medicinal herbs while her brother turned them into potions. Sana suddenly remembered the book she had found and was about to tell her brother about it, but she hesitated. She thought that the book might be forbidden, so she had to keep it from him. That night, when she was on her bed, she lit a candle to check what was inside the book. She was amazed because the book was full of colors. When she noticed that copying or duplicating the book was prohibited, she got nervous because it might be forbidden. She found a page containing the info about the main character who was awakened after being nominated as a hero. She became interested in the contents, but when she saw that the second prince of Escador Kingdom named Maliros was called a selfish narcissist and a scumbag playboy, she couldn't believe it. She slammed the book in annoyance and thought this might be why it was forbidden, but ended up opening the book again and reading more. She found the Escador Kingdom's map, and their city was illustrated in every detail. She couldn't believe someone could accurately describe their place in this book. She giggled and agreed that Mrs. Mist had the best meat pie, but she suddenly froze when she noticed the book saying 300 rubies were hanging under a tree in the city square. She chuckled and didn't believe it, but when she went there the following day, she was in disbelief because they really were there. The book also said that a feather hat was hiding under a jar, and the antidote herbs were growing nearby trees. She went to those places on the map and discovered everything was true. When she got home, she stared blankly, pondering what she should do about this book. She couldn't believe every detail about the citizens and the hidden treasures was accurate. Her brother suddenly called her and said he would pick some herbs for the upcoming festival. Sana said she would do it, but he insisted because he was not good at shopkeeping. Sana nodded and told him to be safe. When he was gone, she took the book out and noticed that there was a page about their tool shop, but she was confused as to why his brother wasn't listed in the book. She scanned the other pages and noticed a quest to avenge her brother. She was baffled, so she looked for the quest's details. When she found it, she saw her profile and learned that she would be asking the hero to defeat the monster attacking her brother, who only went out to collect some herbs for the festival. While feeling anger towards the book because it says that her brother would be attacked, she suddenly felt uneasy. She suddenly remembered that her brother had just picked some herbs for the festival. A few minutes later, her brother was walking inside the forest when he heard some rustling sound nearby. He halted when he saw a figure on his left. He was stunned when he saw a green monster looking back at him. He couldn't believe a monster was there. Out of fear, he tried to run away from the monster quickly, but his walking aid slipped, and he fell to the ground. His butt crashed on the floor, and he couldn't move anymore from fear. Upon seeing its creepy face, the monster walked towards him, and his body started trembling. He knew this would be his end. Tears fell from his eyes, but someone suddenly blasted a magic blizzard. In an instant, the monster was frozen with ice. Bro got attacked by a big Furby, lol. 3 adventurers couldn't believe a ferocious monster like this Veggie Kong would show up close to their city. Sana's brother looked at them in confusion, so the 3 introduced themselves and said they were just doing a quest to slay that Veggie Kong. After he asked about the quest, Sana popped out and thanked the adventurers for accepting her sudden request. She handed the reward to them, and they replied, saying she was lucky because their group knew the Veggie Kong's weakness. The siblings were already heading back to their house when the sun went down. As they were walking, he asked how she knew a monster would appear in the forest. Sana said it was only her gut feeling, and she couldn't say it was from a book she read. She had already researched about the monster that would attack her brother and somehow found out that its weakness was ice magic, so she looked for a level 13 mage nearby that could use ice magic. She found out about a party of 3 that appeared in front of the weapon shop, so she went there to wait and ask them for her urgent request. Sana was glad that she had learned what might happen and had prevented the tragedy from happening. Her brother lowered his head and thanked her for coming to his rescue because he really thought he would perish at that moment. She smiled and said they should have a feast tonight. If this book had not made it to her, Sana would have tried to avenge him, as the book says. Upon realizing this, she thought this book was too dangerous and must be destroyed. With this book, she thought it could change their world drastically if someone else got their hands on it. She lit a candle and decided to turn it to ashes, but the book's embellishment shone beautifully at her. She looked at the book and its colored text and maps again, which made her refuse to destroy such a beautiful book. She suddenly realized she didn't have to destroy it since she was the only one who knew about it. She placed the book away in her secret collection and hadn't touched it since then. Even the smaller changes in that book might make the future worse. One day, when they were having a meal, their mother talked about how Dalgus was feeling unwell lately. Her brother asked who Dalgus was, so Sana said he was the guy who always buys recovery potions in their shop. She volunteered to check on the uncle in his tavern later, so after their meal, Sana went out to go to Dalgus Tavern, the most popular place among residents and adventurers. Dalgus thanked Sana for checking up on him. He said that the doctor had told him to stop drinking, but they were startled when his daughter's name, Tasha, slammed a mug of water in front of them. She called his father an idiot for still drinking despite the doctor's warnings. She told Sana not to come there for his drunkard father because if he perished, it would be bad for their recovery potion sales. Dolgus stopped her, but Tasha glared at him and asked if he would stop drinking now. Her father sighed and told her to practice her dance for later. When she was gone, Dolgus apologized to his daughter because she was only upset because he didn't take care of his health. She asked what happened. He went silent momentarily and said her daughter might be rude sometimes, but she was a good dancer. She brought many customers with her talent every night, so their place became popular even for foreign nobles. Dolgus revealed that he was worried about his tavern because if his body deteriorated, this tavern would close. He was certain that this tavern would close in his lifetime. He started coughing mid-sentence, making Sana worried. Due to pity and worry, she told him that she would try to ask the great fortune teller she knew about his tavern's future. When she got home, he opened the book she had promised not to open again. She looked at the map and was speechless to realize that the tavern was gone and a casino was built to replace it. She wondered if the place went bankrupt after her uncle collapsed, so she searched for answers and saw the main quest, Prince's Regret. It was when the prince got kidnapped while sleeping in an inn with the hero, so the hero went to search for the prince. After their battle, the blueprint behind the kidnapping appeared. It was Tasha. Sana was shocked upon reading how the prince recognized her face because she was the dancer at the tavern, and the prince went to relax in secret. The prince got into an argument with Tasha, so he abused his power to crush the tavern. Right before she lost consciousness, she told the prince she only did it to avenge her father, whose body couldn't withstand the shock of closure. The prince was swallowed by regret afterward. Sana rushed back outside and tried to run as fast as she could to warn Tasha and tell her to avoid arguing with the second prince, Maliros. That night, it was oddly crowded. Dolgus said everyone was looking forward to seeing her performance and added that a VIP would come tonight. Tasha just looked at him and headed out. Sana was chasing her breath as she went closer to the entrance, but suddenly, a firm shoulder bumped against her. She apologized and looked at the man she bumped into. Her jaw dropped when the cold blue eyes of the prince looked at her. She instantly knew it was Prince Maliros. She was stunned and stared at his face for a second. Her face turned red as the prince looked at her from head to toe in disgust. Maliros told her to move out of his way, so she slid to the side. The prince was with a woman who seemed to be a little excited to see the tavern. Sana stopped them and asked him if he would like to go into another tavern with a stuttering voice. The prince was surprised and smirked at her. Sana was caught off guard by his reaction. The prince leaned closer and asked if that bump was intentional. He rubbed his chin and said he would comment on her courage to extend him an invitation. She scoffed and said he had no interest in rats like her and that she should blame it on the misfortune of her birth. Sana tried to explain, but the woman snickered and pulled him inside. She was left speechless outside, so when she recovered, she went to Tasha's room to warn her. She told her not to get mad no matter what. But Tasha suddenly asked if she was referring to the man with a black coat and blonde hair. Sana was surprised and asked how she knew. Tasha said she happened to see him talking to her out front. Sana told her not to fight with that guy for her, but Tasha frowned her brows and said no. Her aura changed as she said she would never forgive that brat for calling Sana a rat. She tried to calm her and ensure her that she was fine, but Tasha said she would never forgive that blonde. Sana sighed and told her that man was the second Prince Maliros. Tasha was surprised but didn't buy it. She said that a prince visiting their tavern would be impossible. The first prince, Lawrence, was respected by many people, and no one had ever seen the second prince's face because he never appeared publicly, so no wonder Tasha didn't believe it. Sana had no choice but to pull her last card. She offered Tasha some tea to calm her down, and when she took a sip and said making her drink wouldn't convince her not to get mad at that man, she started to pass out. When she fell asleep, Sana apologized for using some sleeping pills on her. She immediately told Dolgus that Tasha could go and dance tonight. Sana felt guilty to see her uncle so worried because they had some VIP guests who paid him a lot for the show. He started sweating cold while thinking of a way to explain it to his clients. He just hoped he could do something to replace Tasha's show because his clients might get angry at him. Sana was starting to get swollen up by guilt by this time. Meanwhile, the prince and his girl were drinking on a VIP seat when Dolgus greeted everyone on the stage. He announced the dancer's health status and that she wouldn't be dancing that night. The prince got frustrated because that performance was what they came to see. The woman tried to gaslight him by saying he even made her come to see this shabby tavern and suggested cleaning this place up. The prince smirked and agreed with her, but when Dolgus said a special guest would be coming upstage, they all looked intrigued. He introduced the woman who knows everything in the world, the legendary fortune teller, which was Sana. Maliros was surprised to see a fortune teller on the stage while Sana was praying for the prince's calmness and mercy for the tavern. The people started buzzing and getting disappointed because they only went there to see Tasha. Uncle Douglas was getting worried about what Sana would try to pull. She looked around and searched for people he could work with. She greeted everyone and said she would now use her second sight on them. A long-haired man with gold chains scoffed and mocked her. Sana pointed at him because he was her target for tonight. The man was startled when he was called. Sana closed her eyes and said she could see a golden light from him. The man dropped his jaw in shock and asked what she meant. Sana asked if he was in possession of a golden ring. The man gulped and took off the gold ring he had. The people were buzzing in surprise upon realizing she was right. Sana revealed that he picked it up from a sandy place. The man stood up and said he indeed got it from Kala Desert. heart. Sana sighed and said the ring cursed him and always made him thirsty. The man agreed and said his thirst wasn't quenched even if he drank a lot. She told him to return the ring to the temple to lift the curse. The crowd was murmuring in surprise. Sana smiled at their reaction and thought she only knew it because she had read it in the book. She looked around and spotted the man with a red hat. She asked if he was planning to buy a house. The man was startled and said he and his wife were indeed planning to buy a new house. Sana revealed they were trying to choose between a house in the Boast and the mountain. She advised him to avoid purchasing the house on the coast because it was infested with ghost-type monsters. The man was glad and said he would buy the house in the mountains instead. She looked around for her last target, but the prince suddenly spoke, saying they had no proof that these two men weren't working with her. The two jolted in disbelief because he was doubting them. The princes added that what she revealed was something anyone could get before the show. He challenged the fortune teller and told her to tell them something everyone would find impossible to know. Sana got worried when he asked her what he had for breakfast. She closed her eyes tightly from frustration and suddenly remembered what she read. Maliros had a section in the book of his favorites, which included honey. Sana revealed that he ate honey for breakfast, which caught him off guard. The crowd was amused once again by her powers. Maliros couldn't believe she got it right, but she thought everyone could eat honey, and she only got lucky. He asked her for more, so Sana tried to recall what she had read about him. She said that he had a very high aptitude for magic and that it would be possible for him to learn high-rank spells. The people were amazed by the revelation, and his girl was impressed by it. Sana added that he also has low strength, and his physical attacks were less than normal damage. Maliros got pissed and told her not to go through his stats. He asked if it was the extent of her ability, so Sana was pushed again to recall some of his information. She revealed that when he was young, he was chased by a ghost-type monster, and since he had been afraid of it, he slept with his nanny until he was 11 years old. Sana was surprised because the audience was laughing at him. Maliros was also chuckled on the side, which made the prince even more angry. His face had turned red from madness. Damn, she's just roasted that guy extra charred. She did a curtsy to end her act, and the people clapped for her. Dalgas thanked Sana and said he would get her something to eat as thanks. When he left, she rested her back against the wall as she remembered Maliros' angry face. She sighed and wondered if she made a huge mistake and made things worse now. The prince stormed outside the tavern. Rose, the woman, sighed and suggested demolishing the tavern and turning it into a casino instead. They were stopped when the fortune teller popped out. Maliros' face crumpled in anger once again. Sana was still taking her breath when she apologized about the show. She said the tavern had nothing to do with it and was her fault. She bowed her head lowly as she apologized again, making the prince smirk devilishly. He chuckled and said he had already decided to tear the place apart and put a casino instead. Rose smiled when Maliros said putting a casino in this filthy place would turn the table around in this area. She grasped her skirt tightly and said she was only acting on her own, but the prince thought she seemed desperate to protect it. He pointed at her and said he was no ordinary nobleman because he had the authority to destroy this tavern. Maliros was stunned when the fortune teller called him a pure scum. The prince dropped his jaw and was speechless in shock. Sana said he didn't care about the people relying on his tavern for their lives. She called him a selfish, narcissistic piece of garbage for trying to ruin the lives of these innocent people. She said he would be destroying many families just by destroying things out of spite. The prince was still out of words. Sana's voice started shaking when she begged him to think about it carefully so he would not regret it later on. Those words hit his heart hard. It was eye-opening for him as he watched her cry in tears. His woman chuckled and mockingly said crying would be useless because the tavern would be destroyed now. The prince firmly said no and said he would not destroy it. He added that building a casino in this filthy area doesn't sit right. He thrust his finger against her forehead and called Sana a fraud. Her face brightened despite being called a fraud because the prince had shown mercy and kindness. She grabbed his hand and thanked him. She apologized again for her prior insolence. The sudden change of impression caught Maliros off guard. He pulled his hands off her in disgust, so Sana apologized. She bowed before him and said she would leave now. As she was leaving, the prince suddenly called him. Sana turned around in confusion. Maliros asked if she was working in the tavern. She replied, saying she was only a freelancer. He stared into her eyes, making him uncomfortable, and asked her to be hired as his personal fortune teller. Rose was surprised by his offer when he said he would offer her a lifestyle that would be a dream for her. Sana smiled and kindly rejected his offer because she knew she still had to work in their item shop. She bid goodbye again and went off again. Rose glanced at her back with a pounding heart. The prince once again got mad for being rejected by someone. He cursed the woman and called her a witch. 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. He almost learned a good lesson there. Almost. When Sana got home, she touched the book and thought this book had saved her again. There was a day a few days later when Sana went out riding a shared wagon to the eastern lands, and the reason was the day before this happened. When she was at the counter, a woman was running through their items. She approached her and asked what she was looking for. The woman stuttered and hesitated to say but eventually asked if they had something to soften one's legs. She was confused and asked if she was referring to stiff skin, but the woman said it was hard as rock. Sana suddenly paused as she realized what it could be. The woman was surprised when she asked if it was because of a monster. She had read about the basic venomous monster that would petrify whatever it touched would gradually spread spread and lead to one's death. The woman lowered her head as she said her son was attacked during their trip and hoped it had been her who was attacked instead of her son. She was also aware there was no cure for it, so she was just hoping something miraculous could happen with the potions she found. Sana remembered that a silverberry in the eastern lands could cure it, so she was heading east to get those berries. An adventurer beside her told her to be careful because a lot more monsters appeared during this time. She remembered the dagger attached to her belt, which her brother gave her to protect herself from monsters that could occur out of nowhere. She accepted the dagger and thanked her brother for it. She clenched it and told herself that she had to be careful. The man beside her asked where she was heading, so she said she would pick some silverberries. The man before her suddenly said he was heading the same way because he was heading to the nearby Ippo village. She was glad they were heading in the same direction. Even the man beside him said this would be a perfect day to head to the forest, but the sky turned dark after a few seconds. It started raining heavily. They were surprised by the sudden changes in the weather. Because of the sudden rain, Sana had to spend a night in Ippo village, which was next to the forest she was heading to. When they arrived in the village, she went to an inn and was surprised the night would only cost 4 rubies. It was cheap, so she booked for one night. The door opened, and the man who had come in earlier asked for a room. The receptionist offered her a free warm tea, so she thanked her. Some men came in saying the storm might be because of that. Sana was intrigued and tried to listen to the men, who were filled with energy. She sat with the man he met at a table. He introduced himself as Mukmosa, a traveling merchant, so Sanana also introduced herself to him as well. When she said she was from Escador, he commented that running a business in their area must be tough. The proud man with the armor, named Doug, was praised for being strong and said they don't have to be afraid of that thing because they have Doug. Mukmosa suddenly spoke, asking the villagers if they were referring to the red eyes of doom. Doug and the others were shocked. Mukmosa snickered as he figured he was right based on their reactions. Doug got up and asked where he heard about that. Sana became nervous and worried about Mukmosa, but he remained calm and said he only heard it from some rumors. Doug gets furious when he brings up the legend about their village, so the receptionist has to step in and tell them their rooms are ready. She suggested they head to their room now while it was still warm. The two got up and went to their own rooms, and the villagers gave them a stabbing glare as they walked. Sana was scrunching as she could feel those stares behind them. When she settled inside her room, she looked outside the window and hoped tomorrow's weather would be nicer. As the night went on, the rain was still pouring, but the following morning, the sun was starting to come out. The storm had passed, so Sana went to the illusion forest at once. The ground was sodden, making walking hard, but luckily, she copied the map from the forbidden book. She looked closer at the map and realized that the red eyes of doom seemed familiar. She had read from the book that the legend in the Ippo village was about the red eyes that would bring about doom. The protagonist in the story got his eyes turned red after his parents perished. The village feared him, and one day, after a raging storm, the likes of which only appeared every 10 years, assailed the village. She suddenly heard a sound nearby, so she took her dagger out, and when she turned to look behind, she saw the man with a pair of red eyes. Sana was speechless as she looked at him. The man was confused and asked who she was, and this was the true beginning of this story, where Sana got to a point where he had become the story's heroine. There was actually a scene during the night in the tavern where Maliros asked the fortune teller where she put the honey. Sana was baffled and guessed if he was putting it on bread, and based on his reaction, she seemed to get it right. The next day, Sana was scolded by her brother for going to the cliffs again to get these herbs, but she was just smiling at him because she was glad that she could hear her brother's scolding thanks to that book and now going back. I will introduce you to the day of the chaos when a group of Gorgs attacked the protagonist's village. Tsubasa was carrying his mother on his back. She was wounded, and they were both getting tired. His mother begged him to put her down and leave the village immediately, but Tsubasa did not listen. Unfortunately, they were found by the Gorgs. They were grinning at them with their creepy and sharp teeth. Tsubasa's eyes become watery in fear. He doesn't know what to do and looks like he is about to get crazy. All he knew after a few minutes, he was covered in blood with an axe in his hand. His weapon was dripping with the blood from the monsters he fought. But after the fight, he stood there staring blankly at his mother's shoe. His eyes were glowing red, and he suddenly gasped in shock after realizing it was only a nightmare. He got up and felt his heart pounding hard. He sighed and was surprised when a voice called him. A light from the window flashed at him, telling him to go to the Forest of Illusion. Afterward, the light and the voice vanished. He was so confused about what had happened that morning he got up and went to the forest to find out what was happening. He went inside the forest, lost his way, and while he was wandering aimlessly, this hero would eventually find the holy sword, but a twist happened. He came across a girl with long orange hair holding a dagger. He somehow got scared upon seeing her, but on the other hand, Sana was starstruck. He wondered who she was and if she was an adventurer. He decided to talk to her, said he got lost, and asked where they were. Sana smiled because she could help him with her map. She told him the way to the Ippo village, but she froze after realizing his story and how those people hated him. She crumpled the paper and diverted her fingers to the other side. She volunteered to guide him, but he seemed to be suspicious of her. Little Tsubasa was persecuted by the villagers because of his red eyes and was blamed for having killed his own parents while his red eyes were awakened. Sana tried her best to keep him away from the village, but Tsubasa fully trusted her because she knew the way inside the illusion forest despite being an outsider. He thought he might be a spy who joined hands with the villagers who would guide him to the village so he would get executed. They suddenly stopped when Sana spotted a familiar fruit. She looked closer and thought it looked just like the silverberries from the books. She checked on her map and confirmed it was indeed the place where she would find the fruit. Tsubasa was confused as to why the girl was talking to herself, but he remained silent. She looked up and thought it might be too high for her. She tried to tiptoe to reach it, but it was a few inches higher from her fingertips. Her body was starting to shake and wobble, but she was surprised when a hand picked the fruit from behind her. Tsubasa had stepped in to help her. He handed the fruit to her without making eye contact. She was speechless as she took the fruit and eventually thanked him. Tsubasa was caught off guard after hearing someone thank him. Sana was startled by her reaction and said she only thanked him. He nodded and thought it had been a while since someone thanked him, but he still thought of her as a spy sent by the village. When Sana felt his stare, she turned to look at him and caught him looking. Tsubasa's face turned red, and she said it was not what she thought. Sana chuckled and said she only came there to get some of these fruits. She added that she took a horse all the way from the central area. She looked at the map and thought it was about time. She looked back at him and said she must leave now because her business was done. She pointed at the path where he had to take, but it looked so creepy. When she went off and left him, he looked at the path and wondered what kind of a monster would be waiting for him down that area. He jolted when Sana suddenly returned and called him. She handed out 2 potions. He took it, wondering if it had poison in it, but Sana said these were potions she sold from her item shop. She explained that the blue one was for recovering stamina, and the red one was for strength boosters. He asked why she was giving him these, so she said this was her only way to help him because she would be rooting for him forever. Tsubasa was confused by what she said, and afterward, Sana reminded him to make sure to follow the path she had told him. After she left, he still thinks the potions contain poisons. He looked at the path and thought he had to stay away from returning back to the Ippo village, but he suddenly heard that voice earlier. He tried to follow the voice deep inside the woods. It was coming from the direction the girl had told him, so he went there and found a beautiful sword stuck in the ground. He moved closer. This was the legendary moment when the hero finally found the holy sword. Sana was hiding behind a bush, watching this legendary hero be reborn. She was relieved that he made it to the sword because she almost guided the lost hero to the village earlier. She got up and grabbed her things because her duty had come to an end. Sana now had to return while these creatures lurked behind the shadows, watching them. After meeting that woman in the shop, she took the shared wagon to get some silverberries and got the chance to meet the hero before his awakening. She was glad to be able to see him in person before he could become the legendary hero. She giggled and wished she could tell everything to her brother, but she had to keep these things a secret. Walking back to the village, she remembered the night she repeatedly read about Tsubasa's story. When he returned to the village with his holy sword, their village was attacked by a heinous monster. He fought with it, but due to his low level, he almost lost against it. However, on the verge of his death, his red eyes activated. He managed to slay all of the monsters but lost his senses and was unable to leave his berserker mode and began to attack the villagers. An adventurer passing by put the hero to sleep with a tranquilizer, making her wonder who that adventurer was. Tsubasa was banished from the village, and the mysterious adventurer sent him to a priest who could help him control his power. The story from the book differed from what she had heard from the villagers because they all seemed angry and feared the red eyes of doom. She suddenly halted when the group of villagers came out of nowhere. They greeted her, so she greeted them back. They asked what she was doing, so she said she went there to gather some fruits. Doug told her to be careful because she might be lost in the forest. They volunteered to guide her back to the village, but she refused them. Doug insisted, saying there was no way an outsider like her would get out there safely. She only wished she could go home, but she had no choice but to go with them to get back home quicker. The 3 led the way and said they were the only tough guys in their village. They almost went to turn in the wrong direction, but Doug corrected his friend. He suddenly called her and asked if she had been with Tsubasa earlier. Sana was surprised and acted like she didn't know the name. She added she met a guy earlier, so Doug told her to stay away from Tsubasa. Speaking of Tsubasa, he was testing the holy sword out down the forest. He was confused because these monsters kept popping up so much recently. He looked at the sword and wondered if it was because he took this sword. He suddenly froze when he heard some voices. He followed them and saw the orange-haired girl talking with the people from the village. He had confirmed that she was really a spy because of this. Doug said there was a curse passed down to their village because of that red-eyed man. He added that Tsubasa slew a flock of monsters with his red eyes, and everybody in their village feared him whenever his eyes turned red. Doug added that he was there to protect the village from that monster, and hearing this made Tsubasa grit his teeth in anger. Sana bravely told them it was completely wrong. Everyone was dumbfounded because of what she said. She explained that it was only a legend, and it was not because of red eyes that brought catastrophe to them, but the red eyes would emerge when the catastrophe was coming. She told them red eyes would save them from chaos and that they could confirm it from a stone slab carved on the village chief's basement. Doug chuckled awkwardly and told her to stop with the sophistry because all of the villagers were living in fear because of him. She asked if that fear was from the storm last night and said it wasn't a catastrophe when it didn't even destroy a single building. She asked which part of slaying a flock of monsters by himself was monstrous when he only saved the village from chaos. Doug gritted his teeth and said that man was disgusting and gloomy, but Sana told him it was outrageous for them to treat the one who could save the world from ruin like this. She pointed at them and revealed that they were the monsters who had attacked his parents. Doug was turning red as he said that was just what his pops told him. Sana thanked them for showing her the way back and told them they should turn right at that big tree to get back to the village. As she left them in silence, the three were furious because an outsider acted like she knew so much about their village. Meanwhile, the hero was in shock by what he heard, and he lost grip of his sword. When she got back to the village, she was relieved that the place was still in peace and there was no trace of any monster. As she was walking, she spotted some kids playing outside, so she went to them and told them to go back home because it would be dangerous if they stayed out there. The kids were confused but followed what she said. The receptionist suddenly called her. She approached her and said an item was left in their inn. She added that it was her friend's item, which she figured she was referring to Mukmosa. Sana said she only happened to share a carriage with him and didn't know him really well, but when she saw the long thing covered with a blanket, she became nervous. It was longer, and she knew she had to quickly hand it back to Mukmosa. When the receptionist tried to peek inside the item, Sana stopped her and told her it would be dangerous. The receptionist asked if she knew what was inside, but she only replied, telling her not to open it. After a few seconds, Mukmosa appeared, apologizing for his carelessness. The woman handed him the item and said she was about to ask this girl about it. Sana was relieved because he had his item back. She was surprised to hear him calling his name when she left them. She halted when he asked how she knew it was a weapon. She started sweating cold. She might be screwed. She acted innocent and asked what he meant. Mukmosa went silent momentarily and said this was a harmless merchant's baggage, yet she was trying so hard to keep it hidden. Sana jolted in nervousness when Mukmosa brought up how she said that it was dangerous. He glared at his and told her to be honest with him as she took the weapon out of the bag. Sana dropped her jaw in shock as she saw the scary weapon. He told her that she might live based on her answer. She gulped and said she only knew it because he didn't know about her shop. She explained that when she told him she ran a shop in Escador, he seemed not to know it. Mukmosa remembered that conversation and asked what about it. She said that a peddler who didn't know their shop was odd as it may sound presumptuous, but their store was famous, and most of the peddlers always stopped by their shop, so she figured Mukmosa wasn't a peddler. Sana only had to guess that it might be Mukmosa who would help calm the hero later on, and she seemed to be right. He smiled and said he didn't expect Escador's item shop to be that popular. He revealed that he was not a peddler but a scout who traveled in search of strong talents, and he came there because of some rumor he had to check. He leaned closer and asked her what made their item shop so famous. She proudly and confidently said her brother makes the top-tier recovery potion, but he replied that it was nice, but wasn't interested deep inside. He turned and said he would drop by the next time he returned to Ecuador. This man's true identity is revealed only in the second half of the Forbidden Book, and the monster appears just about the time she leaves the village. Doug's group was trembling in fear, hoping someone might help them, but was filled with anger when he spotted Tsubasa back in their village. Like the book said, the hero showed up to face the monster alone. The battle began, but Tsubasa was no match for that boss-level behemoth. He was still in level 1, so he was no match for it. His body was exhausted, and when his eyes were turning red, he suddenly remembered the potions he got. He remembered what that girl said and took the recovery potion first. He gulped the potion, and in only a few seconds, his body was unscathed. He felt no pain, so he figured the girl was telling him the truth. He opened the potion that would boost his strength, so when he took it, he finally slaughtered the monster without resorting to his red eyes. The villagers came out when the monster was defeated. They couldn't believe Tsubasa had saved them and defeated that monster alone. Mukmosa was looking at him through his sniper. He couldn't believe this boy had defeated a boss while still at level 1. He was confused because this red-eyed boy didn't use his power to defeat this monster. The villagers walked to him and thanked him. They also apologized for getting the wrong idea about him because of the legend. In the book, Tsubasa was supposed to be banished from the village, but the villagers thanked him instead. The villagers asked him to stay in their village to atone themselves. Tsubasa had decided to leave the village because he had one place in mind to go. The villagers asked where he would go, so he said he would head to the capital to visit an item shop. The hero left the village, but the reason for his departure was slightly different from the one in the book. Sana, who was in the carriage, was glad that she could collect many silverberries. She suddenly thought that the hero might be fighting at this time. She just wished he could have witnessed the advent of the hero. The Harvest Festival day had arrived, and the people were busy and excited for this day. This large festival brings in people from all over the central area because of the merchant stalls and tournaments. Sanana Rita was preparing herself for today's event. Their shop also has a booth at the festival to sell their best-selling potion as well as their new anti-petrification potion. She was glad it came out right after her brother found out that if the seed was heated over a fire and strained, the prototype could be used and brought to the kid. His stone leg slowly hissed out smoke as it returned to its normal skin and flesh. Their family was in tears to see the boy fully recovered, so Sana was paid for the medicine, and she had never seen that much money before. She went to an armor shop to buy the item she had been eyeing for. It was a magic knee pad, and thanks to this gear, her brother no longer needed a cane to walk. I just can't believe how much love they have for each other as a family. Her brother couldn't believe she had saved this much to buy him this gear, but Sana told him it was all thanks to his potion. Their mother cheered him up and was glad to see his son walking normally again. At the festival, they were surprised that they had no customers yet. She suddenly heard a familiar voice calling her name. It was Tasha telling her that some quack doctor was hawking fakes. Sana was confused, so Tasha guided her to the booth nearby. People gathered there, listening to a cute girl selling the allegedly top-quality recovery potion that could heal damages. Tasha rolled her eyes and said top-quality potions were supposed to be her thing. They were confused as to why they got so many customers, but when the girl said only green-colored recovery potions are made out of the purest herbs and blue-colored potions were fakes, they understood why. This girl said she only wanted the adventurers to have the best potions and avoid the blue-colored ones. The people were touched by her concern. Even Tasha had a second thought about blue recovery potions being diluted and not pure, but when she noticed Sana's potions, she gasped. Other people noticed Sana's potions and started criticizing it for its color. She frowned her brows and walked to the booth. She said that their herbs were fresh and weren't heated. She added their potions were blue because it wasn't heated. Tasha agreed like she was in a heated debate and told the girl to use her brain before yapping her trap. The girl went silent and suddenly started crying. Sana was caught off guard when the girl said she only happened to know someone who was selling fake blue potions, and perhaps she didn't word it right and sounded like she was obstructing their business. The people went buzzing, pitying the crying girl for being accused. Sana looked at the girl and saw her snickering. This little witch. A punch in the face puts a witch in their place, as they say. Sana was speechless because people were now looking at her. On the other hand, Maliros roamed around the central area, searching for the fortune teller who had rejected him. She was looking for that bright orange color because the tavern owner insisted that he didn't know her. When he spotted a similar hair color around the corner, he pushed everyone along his way and tried to call her attention. Sana was sulking as she walked back. Tasha cursed and said she would never forgive that hussy. She suggested dancing in front of her booth to bring some customers. All she had to do now was prove her potions were clean. Suddenly, some group of men was carrying an injured man. His body had blood all over. They brought the man to the girl's shop and asked for some potion. The girl was stunned and hesitantly handed the potion. The man chugged the potion immediately, and after a few seconds, only small grazes were gone. But the big wounds wouldn't stop bleeding. The man carrying the injured man asked why the potion wasn't working properly. The girl got annoyed and said he was expecting too much for a recovery potion with such a grievous wound. Sana rushed to them, worried, and asked them to try her recovery potion. The girl was surprised to see her back. The man hesitated to take it, but when Sana said the injured man's condition might get worse, the man gave it to him. Everyone was amazed to see the wounded man all well. He stood up with a smile and said his shoulder stiffness was gone as well. Sana blew air out in relief and made an advertisement saying she only had to carry a recovery potion from Rita's item shop. The people who saw the miraculous potion immediately went to their item shop. In 1 second, Sana had snatched all of this witch's customers. She gritted her teeth in frustration and thought the performance of that potion was impossible. She thought they were doing something fishy, but her thoughts were interrupted when a man asked if they saw some orange-haired girl on their wanted list. The girl was surprised and remembered the orange-haired girl earlier. She smirked and told the man she had seen the girl he was looking for. The sun was already setting when the girl from the booth called Sana to a dark street to ask for an herb she had in mind. The girl told her to wait while she got the potion. While the girl went off, she walked to the man and told him that he brought the fugitive he was looking for. The man thanked her and told the other man that they already found the girl he was looking for. The girl was in awe of the beauty of the prince. Maliros stared at her, and it sent butterflies inside her stomach. He asked if she was acquainted with that orange-haired girl, but she said no. The prince walked away, making her assume that this man who was born with a silver spoon had gone out of his way to talk to her after seeing her face. I want to slap this witch's face. Meanwhile, Sana was patiently waiting for the girl to return when she heard a familiar voice calling her a fortune teller. Her eyes widened after realizing who it was, so she immediately dashed to run away from him. But the prince grabbed her hair. She screamed as she was being pulled closer to him. When she got closer, she turned around to look at him. Maliros was surprised to see the true face of the fortune teller. He took a closer look, making his face turn red. He avoided eye contact. He said she was that rat from the tavern. The girl earlier was eavesdropping and was surprised to hear the man calling her a rat. She had confirmed that this girl did something bad, but Sana denied that they had met before. Maliros told her to shut up because he couldn't mistake her for anyone else but that fortune teller based on her voice and hair. Sana was trembling in fear because the prince got mad at her. He asked if she was reading fortunes earlier as well. Sana said no, but then she remembered this man knew her as a freelance fortune teller. He challenged her to reread his fortune. Sana sighed and had no choice but to reveal another info. It was a good thing she couldn't resist reading that book every night, so she revealed that his favorite flower was roses. The prince dropped his jaw in shock and said she could see everything. The prince swooped her hand inside her cloak and suddenly shoved a bouquet of roses at her. Sana was stunned when he invited her to the ball that would take place the next day. He smirked and said she would be lucky if he decided to offer her a dance. Upon seeing her flushed reaction, Maliros scoffed and thought there was no way she would reject him now because attending a ball in the castle was every girl's dream. He was chuckling silently, but his sly smirk vanished when Sana bowed her head, thanked him for the offer, and said she would have to refuse. There was a moment of silence afterward. Maliros couldn't believe this girl hadn't even given his invitation a single thought, so he grabbed her wrist and told her just to come. Sana said she would have to decline it respectfully. Sana thought the prince liked fortune telling so much that he would resort to this. She apologized and was about to say she wasn't a real fortune teller when the man called the prince's attention and said his majesty requested his presence. The prince told him to shut up, but when the man said it was urgent, Maliros went silent. He looked back to her, which startled her, but upon seeing her flustered little face, he pressed his lips and disregarded the thought. He went off without saying anything more, leaving Sana confused as she sniffed the beautiful roses. The girl earlier was extremely dumbfounded by what she had heard by now. She couldn't understand why that man put her on the wanted list just to give her some roses. She sighed and went off in disbelief. When Sana got home, her mother was talking to a man in the shop. The man introduced himself as Shishiji, an aspiring doctor, and he was amazed by the recovery potion that he witnessed earlier. He added that he wished to present their potion to the king. Sana gasped in shock, so the doctor said the king was suffering from horrible back pain, and if their potion worked, it might be his ticket inside the castle. Her brother refused the offer, but upon giving it some thought, Sana knew she might lose her head if it didn't work, but it would be a huge marketing opportunity for them. When her brother was officially rejecting it, Sana stepped in and said she would take his place and come with him instead. Shishiji was glad and told her to groom herself for tomorrow. She was confused, so the doctor said the castle had a dress code, so she had to wear a decent dress. Sana paused because she had no single formal dress inside her closet. The doctor just hoped she could secure a dress before going there, but she remained silent. The doctor couldn't believe she had no dresses, but the door suddenly opened. It was the woman who bought their anti-petrifying potion. The woman said her son wanted to say hi to them because he became more energetic after taking their potion. Sana welcomed them, but the woman suddenly apologized for eavesdropping and asked if she wouldn't mind if she prepared her a dress. Sana's eyes sparkled in joy, and she thanked her. After some preparation, the following night has come. The doctor was waiting near a lamp post, wondering if Sana would be coming with an appropriate dress. Some guards nearby were talking about their guest, the rumored hero, while some girls entering the castle were talking about the attendance of the two princes at this party. When a carriage rolled by and stopped before the doctor, Sana came out and apologized for making him wait. She stepped out the door, revealing her gorgeous blue dress that made her hair stand out more. She looked so beautiful in the dress, and even the doctor almost mistook her for a princess. Sana agreed and said she also felt something that didn't feel right with how she looked. The doctor told her it was alright since they were attending a ball. Sana was surprised as she didn't know she was attending a ball. She then realized the part of the book where the part of the story takes place in a ball, and she got nervous because she would be present again. Is it a sin to see Sana as my future wife? That day, when Tsubasa was actually handing her the fruit, he seemed to be caught by her bright smile. After she thanked him, he went up again and picked some more of the fruits. She thanked him again, and hearing someone thank him made her heart pound in silence. Tsubasa picked more and more silverberries, telling Sana that she had more than enough, but he picked the last one and handed it to her before stopping. This hero wanted praise but wouldn't ask for it, or he was only farming some points for her. How cute. Sana was captured at the ball and accused of being a spy from the empire, shocking the second prince and the hero, Tsubasa, who was watching them nearby. Sana couldn't believe this night had come to this. Before this happened, when she was told she would need a dress for meeting the king, she got the lady to prepare her a dress. Sana was brought to her madam's house to start trying to get dressed, and the woman was trying to find the right color of dress that would suit her hair color. When she saw her gorgeous ocean blue eyes, one of her maids brought the blue dress from the closet. When Sana tried it on, they started adjusting the dress to her size. The maids were working fast for her, making her apologize for making them all work so much for her. The maid looks at her blankly, but they smile and say it is alright since she saves their young master's life. Sana was flustered and said all this praise, thanks to the book. The maids gave her a bath, did her hair, and put all sorts of makeup on her face. It all felt a bit overly extravagant for her, but thanks to it, she was able to enter the castle with no issues. As they walked in, the ball was so sparkly and looked exquisite. The two were stuttering in awe at the sight. They cheered themselves to prevent themselves from getting nervous. Sana noticed the crowd nearby, and when she spotted the sun-shaped crest and stylized acacia embroidery of Escador's national flower, she knew it was the first prince named Lawrence. The doctor could only wish he could talk to him, but he thought they should focus on getting the potion to the king first. The doctor called her because she was hiding behind a pillar. She awkwardly chuckled and said it was nothing, but she was actually hiding because she thought that if the first prince was there, Maliros might be there, and he would get mad if he saw her attending the ball after she refused him. Speaking of the second prince, he was called by his father, so when he got to his chamber, the king greeted his son with a smile. He asked if he was doing well with the ball, but Maliros went straight to the point and asked if he wanted him to meet someone. The king smiled and said he got it right. He said the number of monsters was getting high because of the Demon King's resurrection. Maliros was shocked upon hearing the news, so the king said he had dispatched an army to subjugate the Demon King. But the prince said their military might not amount to too much for the Demon King. The king nodded and said one of their guests was the rumored legendary hero from the east. Maliros couldn't believe his father was actually believing in that legend, but the king said that the general populace believed it, and the oracle had stated it was true, so their kingdom had to trust in the hero as well. The king brought up that the court mages had always sung praises of his talent in magic. Valeros felt something he didn't want might happen at this point, so when the king told him that he wanted him to join the hero's journey and assist him in defeating the Demon King, he went speechless. The king, his father, would send him out and help the hero bring down the Demon King. The king asked if he would obey his command, but he knew he had no escape from his father's command, so he had no choice but to say yes. As he left the room, he was in disbelief that his father would be sending him out on a journey where there would only be a 50% chance to win against the monster. He smiled bitterly and said the kingdom's honor would be preserved if he did this. On the other hand, Sana was staring at the food on the long table. She took one, and her eyes sparkled when she tasted the sweet cake. The doctor called her, which startled her, and asked why she brought that beat-up bag. She opened it and said she had always got some recovery potions on her just in case. Shishiji nodded and agreed with her. She turned back to the table of feast and hoped she could just bring some of it to her brother and mother. She was about to get one but was startled again when the doctor called her. He pointed out a man by the pillar who runs an armor shop with over 20 employees. Since armors were made using molten metal, injuries were nearly inevitable in their work. Sana suddenly realized what he was pointing out, that she could sell him her recovery potions in bulk. As Hishiji nodded and said she was lucky as he was acquainted with him. He said he would put in good work for her, but he stopped when he was about to head to him. He doesn't remember his name. He couldn't believe he had forgotten the name of his own patient, who was part of high society. Sana felt empathetic and pitied the doctor, so she asked if he only needed to know his name. The doctor said yes, so Sana turned around and took the book out. She had brought the book with her and looked for the list of characters from Escador. When she found it, she learned that the man's name was Arm Kuchin. She spoke it out loud and rang a bell to Shishiji's head. He asked how she knew his name and what she was reading, but she explained she only checked her notes because she had recently heard about Arm's name. Shishiji walked to Arm Kuchin and introduced himself as his previous doctor. Arm smiled and greeted him. He also noticed the doctor was with a beautiful girl, so Sana stepped closer and proceeded to recommend the recovery potion she had. Sana made up her mind never to use the book for her own gain, yet things led to this. She didn't think that helping recall a name would drastically change the plot of the story. In a world where every event is meticulously detailed in a guidebook, one girl's seemingly insignificant decision defies fate's careful design. As she takes an unexpected path, the once predictable course of events unravels. Each ripple she causes shifts the lives of everyone around her, unraveling the narrative that was supposed to unfold. The story, which was bound by rules and guidelines, is now filled with uncertainty, leaving everyone questioning, was this always meant to happen, or did her choice break the universe's carefully crafted plan? As her journey progresses, she uncovers the power of her own will over destiny. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoy this manga. Have a good day.